Bringing you the voice and vision of custom culture and lifestyle, as seen through the eyes of this South Texas duo. Welcome to the Custom Couple. Mike, welcome to the Custom Couple. What's going on, man?
Man, thanks for having me. It's a pretty crazy story how we got here. I'm sure we'll get to, but man, it's truly an honor.
For real, man. Yeah, it's totally nuts, like the way that the world just lines up sometimes and paths get crossed. Man, I listened to your podcast, I'm sure at the same time when I was trying to do Rust Culture Project. And we constantly, like, I always thought, I was like, I need to have Mike on our show and do something. And like years later, now it's finally happening. So that's awesome.
Yeah, because that was 2017. I think I started the Motor Madhouse podcast with my brother. And we only made it 25 episodes, and it was doing really good. I just didn't realize how good it was doing at the time. And we were breaking 1,000 downloads an episode by episode 25, but I didn't know if that was good or bad. And my second child was born, and I moved 30 minutes from my son or from my brother, and doing these kind of Skype interviews was a little harder back then. You could do it, but you had to like pull the audio and sync it up afterwards. It was just way too much time when I had a newborn. So we're like, well, we'll scrap it and do it later. Yeah, here we are. So that was like a short-lived thing that it's incredible. There's still like relationships from that back, 5 years ago.
Dude, you had 25 episodes and they were averaging 1,000 downloads per episode. That's amazing. Rust Culture Project put out 100 episodes. Like 99, if not 100.
Yeah, well, I really have to thank Rob Kibbe, who hosts the Muscle Car Place. He had me on to talk about and promote my show. After I had my second episode out, I contacted him because that's how I found you too. I just went on iTunes and looked for like all the other car podcasts, and I'm like, yeah, let's network. I want to meet all these people. And Rob's just a super cool, salt of the earth guy. He has a massive following. And he had me on, and it was like, boom! After my episode posted, I got like 4,000 downloads that night.
Oh wow!
I was like, whoa! So those kind of people stuck around. So that was a little bit of kind of a nitrous boost out of the gate that really helped. Didn't realize what I had.
Now that was a podcast that you and your brother did. What got y'all into cars in the first place? Growing up, was that something that you always had a passion for?
Yeah, I mean, I was born into a car family. My dad restored muscle cars my entire childhood. I mean, we had hundreds of different cars, mostly Buicks, Pontiac, 68 to 72, 442s, GTOs, Buick Grand Sports, and a lot of higher end ones like GSXs and Stage 1s, W30s, Ram Air 4s, Judges. So I was surrounded in this surreal environment as a kid. I got to learn to drive stick on a 70 W34 speed when I was 11. So it was like my first memory in my life actually was my dad had a Boss 302 Mustang in the garage, and I had a Buick GSX model, and I thought it was the same car because they were yellow with black stripes. And I walked out there, and his car had the slats on the back window. I'm like, oh, damn it, my car doesn't have that. Well, I didn't say damn it back then, but I was like, I thought we had the same car, but I realized the difference. And then I brought that up to my dad like 10 years ago. I was like, you had a Boss 302 once, didn't you? Because we didn't have many Fords growing up. And he goes, yeah, how'd you know that? I was like, I remember it. He's like, Mike, that was 92. You were 2 years old. There's no way you remember that. I was like, no, this is vividly burned into my brain. It may be my first memory in life, but it was picking out the difference from a GSX to a Boss 302. So, yeah, I mean, I grew up just doing restorations on those cars with my dad and driving around the country with a trailer, picking up cars. And, yeah, it was a blast. Learned a lot, made a lot of great connections.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I remember from your podcast was that y'all were a very technical podcast. You had a lot of stuff that y'all would talk about that would go very in depth. And I was telling Sam about it, and I was like, man, like I remember listening and just like man, like these guys are actual car guys. I'm just faking this.
No such thing. Yeah, and I always feel that way when I look at super good builders because I have aspirations to get better at welding and building and stuff, but I've just never really put in the time. I do my own maintenance on my cars and stuff, but I would love to do like an LS swap on something and build everything and really take some time to actually learn a bunch of skills. So I always look at those people like, oh, I envy their skill set. I wish I could do that. Like, I have a lot of knowledge about the cars, but I need more seat time actually wrenching on them.
Right, right. Well, what do you do? What do you do for a living if it's not cars?
Well, I'm currently in a sales job, so I'm in plumbing sales actually. So I travel around quite a bit. I'm in my car a lot. That's kind of what started the podcast idea. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do like 1,000 miles a week.
Oh
so,
my God.
Yeah, I log a lot of time. I listen to mostly audiobooks or podcasts. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration to be like, hey, I can do this. This would be kind of fun.
That sounds like you when you're traveling as a nurse.
I was about to say when I was traveling all the time,
Yeah.
I was like, I need new things to listen to. I was like, I can't listen to the same song 8,000 times a week. Like, no.
Yeah, it's fun for the first month, and then it's like, I'm tired of music.
Exactly.
That and when you're on the road listening to podcasts, it's like somebody else is sitting there in the car with you and talking to you, and you might be going crazy a little bit, but I think it's healthy for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did the math because I use Stitcher, and the app actually tracks like how much listening time you have, and I've been using it since like 2017, and I think the amount of hours I've listened to is like more than a bachelor's degree. It's like in the thousands of hours. I'm like, oh wow, this is like kind of going to school, and you're interested, like you're picking the topics, so it's you learn quite a bit from them. It's kind of fun to keep expanding your interests.
Very true. See, I got into podcasts because I was trying to start a media company and I didn't really know what I was doing, and I just thought it'd be cool. And my brother, he is just constantly, always suggesting things. Always, I mean, he's always sending us like different books to read and different people to follow, and he's just always like very into everything, business wise. And he turned me on to a podcast called the MFCEO Project. And it's just like this, like in your face kind of guy. His name's Andy Frisella, and he's just like constantly, he's telling his story all the time about how he got into being an entrepreneur. And I was just like, man, this guy's freaking awesome. And I listened to everything he ever had. And then I was like, man, I'm gonna learn everything I want to do for business from this guy. And then I was like, no, I'm just gonna do what he's doing and create a podcast.
Yeah. It's a great path. I mean, I explain it to like my employers and stuff because my current podcast is called Pulse to the Wall, and it's a lot of current event and political opinions and stuff, a lot of which are not very popular with the mainstream narrative. But I tell my boss that, like, this is my escape. It's like my video game or my golfing. Like, I got 4 kids. I have a day job like that keeps me going all day. This is like I get together with my buddies and we just talk about all the ridiculous stuff going on in the world. Like it's an escape for me. So it's kind of more of a hobby, and it'd be nice to make some money at it. But in the meantime, like it's kind of more of like a labor of love.
Yeah, and then Paul's to the Wall. That's because it's you and your brother doing this one as well.
Yeah, that was kind of a confusing story. So originally, the problem I had with the Motor Madhouse was that I love cars, don't get me wrong, but I have a lot of interests, and I was kind of pigeonholed where I could only talk about cars. So I wanted to do one where I could just do like a Joe Rogan style where I can just talk about anything. I'll talk about cars or barbecue or my brother's a big jiu-jitsu guy, music, anything. I wanted to talk about all the, even politics. But I started it the day after the election, and I called it the Mike Paul cast. And like the first 3 guys I had were political commentator podcasters that I listened to. They all agreed to come on before I even had my own podcast. So I had a pretty bang up lineup out of the gate, and it kind of got pigeonholed into politics now. So I'm back to the same problem. So I went to my podcast for like the first 4 episodes, but my brother got really excited by these high profile guests that we were having that he was a big fan of. So being that we were both last name Paul, we were toying with some ideas, and one of our friends said Paul's to the Wall, and we're like, Hell yeah. Let's go with that. So yeah, here we are, and we're not changing it anymore. I'm done doing rebranding.
We'll see with the custom couple, we're not so much a car podcast as we are just a culture and lifestyle.
Oh yeah, we talk about cars, music, pinstripers, artists, like anybody and everybody loves cars. Like you don't even need to do any of it. Like you can just love cars in general, and we love talking to people.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've been listening to your podcast since we reconnected, and it's it's one of those things where I've been kind of so consumed with all just the current event stuff and listening to my mainstream lineup of podcasts that I forgot how fun it is to listen to podcasts about fun topics. It's like, oh, I forgot. I hate politics. That's the reason I don't like this stuff. It's just like I feel like it's important, but like listening to you guys, just like you forget about all the nonsense going on in the world. Like this is the fun hobbies, the fun part of life. So
right, and of course, we would start this podcast like in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah,
and we both were essential workers. Our listeners out there can't see the quotation marks we're making, but we were both essential workers, and we didn't get to like stay home during the pandemic, but we also didn't get to go out and do anything other
we were
than
gone
work.
More than we were at home. Like we were not at home at all. So everyone's like, "Man, you must have enjoyed it." We did not. We were working all the time.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, man, we don't get to go out and do anything. Everything got shut down. Car shows got shut down, and so we were just like, man, well, let's get some recording equipment. And we talked about it for a long, long time, and then finally, for my birthday, she shows up with recording equipment. It's like, here, we're gonna start a podcast.
That's awesome. I love it. No, it's a really fun hobby, and it's a great escape, like I said, and the initial part of the lockdowns is hard for us too. I was off work for a little bit until we knew what was going on, but it was short lived. But and it was brutal because we have at that time a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and 1.5-year-old twins. So we were trapped in the house and couldn't get help because we were afraid to bring grandma over to help, and we didn't know what was going on. So like we're stuck in the house getting groceries delivered, going insane, and we're in the process of moving. We had an offer in on this current house we're in, and the whole world went to hell the day we put our last house for sale, and we didn't think we were ever going to get to this house. So it was like just all our life plans just got stopped, and we're just stuck doing this like Groundhog Day routine of taking care of kids all day.
Oh my God.
Can't get help. So yeah, I wish I had my podcast going. It could have been a little bit more of an escape, but it wasn't quite there yet.
Oh my God, that does sound just absolutely insane. But it's like, we don't talk politics on our show normally, but then like I said, we started this thing right in the middle of a pandemic, so it's like, what topic is on your brain,
right?
On your mind?
We always go back to it. We're like, all right, we're just gonna veer back, and then we're gonna come back around. Like we're fine.
It's hard. It's like encroaching on every square inch of your life. You can't get away from it. It's on the commercials. It's in your kids' schools. It's just it's everywhere you go. There's billboards. It's like, just leave me alone. That's all I want.
I mean, that did end up being like questions that we asked with a few of our guests is like, how did you function, trying to do what you do?
Yeah. How did it affect you?
We talked to musicians, we talked to artists. It's like, well, if you're an artist and your main, way to get money for your art is to go to art shows and go to car shows to sell your art, how do you do that in the middle of, everything else shutting down?
Yeah. No, it's brutal. I mean, I was looking so forward to like Hot Rod Drag Week was supposed to come last year to our local drag strip. I was planning on taking the day off of work, have some buddies come out for that. They're all going to camp out. And then that got canceled like 2 weeks before it happened. And I was like, oh, come on. Like this was like one car event finally. And they pulled the plug on that. But the good news is they did reschedule it, and it will be coming back in a couple weeks here. So. Oh
yeah, you did. You invited us up there for that. It's coming up, by the time folks listen to this, it'll already have passed. So y'all missed out.
September 16th, because Byron Dragway is the closest track to me, and they're gonna come through that way. I think they're in Cordova and like all these. There's a lot of tracks in the Midwest, so they hit like 5 of them in 5 days, and they got to bring their own trailer, and they can't have like a follow car to help them. They got to drive them from track to track and make a pass at each track, and they have to make it all the way to the end. And whoever has like the best times from all the tracks averaged out like wins the event, and there's some crazy grand prize. So it's a pretty expensive but awesome hobby to watch these guys do.
Yeah, cars is just expensive in general. Like, like it's just how does it go from 98-cent Hot Wheels, as a kid to some of the ridiculous prices that we pay, like just trying to get an engine put in sometimes.
Yeah, well, those are about to be $10 Hot Wheels for this generation with the inflation going on. But
right.
I get the point. But yeah, man, it's crazy. It does escalate, and I've personally had over 50 cars, and it started with $1,000 Buick Roadmaster when I was 16. That was just they're kind of like the poor man's Impala SS. They had the LT1 engine, rear-wheel drive, 260 horsepower, ran like a mid-15-second quarter mile. It looks like a grandma car, but that's what I could afford because I couldn't afford the Impala SS because those were like $5,000 to $6,000 when I was a kid, when I was young. But then it just kept stepping up to like F-body Camaros and CTSV Cadillacs, C5 Corvettes. Had a couple of GTS Vipers. Like just kept like setting the goal for the next one and next one, and that was like a fun hobby. I would just have a car for 3 months, sell it, and try to grab something bigger. Because I was single and living at home and working full time, so you can do those kind of things. But that's all on the back burner now. And as we'll get to in this episode, I'm officially going to be away from all my fun cars here pretty soon.
Oh,
I was like, that sounds like you. You've had over like 30 cars.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the cars that you're naming off here are known to be more high performance cars. Were you doing a lot of racing, or were you just owning them because they were high performance cars?
I would take them to the track occasionally, to the drag strip, just for fun, but it was mostly just like a speed addiction. My first Corvette was supercharged. It was a 2000 with an LS1, and it made 512 wheel horsepower. And that ruined me because once you had that, it's like now a stock one feels like a Prius. Like it's just nothing feels fast anymore. So I needed something more. So that's why I bought the Viper, which was pretty comparable. They're like 450 horse, but they're super light, and they're. We always say they're like those are like the pit bulls of cars. It's like, oh, they're not bad cars, just bad owners. Like they're very dangerous. Like no traction control, no ABS. Like that thing was wild. And then from that, I upgraded to a Pontiac G8 that was supercharged, and that was 604 at the wheels. And that thing was just stupid. Anytime you touch the gas pedal, you're doing 130. It was like, this is going to kill me or get me in jail. So, and it was an automatic. So I was like, I can't keep this thing forever. But then you meet a girl and have kids.
That's exactly what happens. So Sam bought me a Model A, and it's a wild child is what it is.
It's an adult go-kart. It is the easiest thing to turn on and drive, and it will go very, very fast. It has no seat belts in it. The seats aren't even bolted down. Like it gets pretty squirrely in that thing. Nothing in the horsepower range that you're talking about, but definitely one of those things, like you said, as soon as you're pressing the gas, it's wanting to go. Like it doesn't have a slow mode. It's no, it doesn't want to go light to light. It wants to get on the highway and just keep going. Oh yeah, it scared some people. You've had some people in your passenger seat. They're like, I was holding anything I could, but nothing was down.
Yeah, I got a buddy with a Model A street rod. I've only ridden in it like not even on a road, just like through a neighborhood, and it was just. I mean, you feel every bump in the road and there's vibration. It's like this thing is. I feel sketchy going out on the highway in this.
Oh yeah,
but they're
sketchy
awesome.
For sure. This one, the door latches aren't in it yet, so they don't close very well, or at all. They're bungee corded shut right now.
Nice.
All our listeners are like, you still haven't fixed that? God damn.
No. That's
you
on
can't
the
be telling them
list.
these things because then you gotta be accountable. Fix them.
Yeah. No. So I got the car in March, and we've just started taking one thing at a time with it, and it's been really fun. Taking it out to a couple little bar hopping events, but nothing long road trips yet.
Yeah. No, I mean they're fun toys. I mean, I'm looking forward to the days where I can get back into my car hobby when the kids get older, but I'm just hitting a point in my life where I'm like, they're just gonna sit. I have no time to work on them, and most of my money's going towards diapers and groceries right now. So it's and I always swore it would never happen to me. I'd watch all these people like being older than me, having higher paying jobs. I'm like, why don't you have anything fun to drive? What are you doing with your life? Like I was a young kid making like $15 an hour, and I had all these fun toys. It's like, oh, because you have real adult bills.
Yeah.
I'm living in an artificial kind of setting when you're living at home and doing these things.
Yeah, no, that's what we've talked about. Is like, man, we got used to having a roof over our head and eating, so
Yeah.
eating regularly.
Right? We're not in that teenage anymore. It's like, well, I guess I can eat this, or I can just wait another 3 days because I want this car part more than I want to eat.
Yeah, and then the whole twin thing, like it's double everything. I mean, they go to the doctor, like our copay is $170. No, it's $340 when they go for their checkups because there's two of them. It's like everything's double.
Gosh.
Like it's brutal. So
That
that's,
is, oh man, those are things that folks that don't have kids or don't have twins think about. It's like, what? Like double? What do you mean you have to pay $300 to go for a doctor's bill? It's like,
yeah,
oof.
it's nuts. It's like, man, I remember spending $300 on a transmission when I was a teenager, thinking that was like gonna set me back like years. Like, how am I gonna rebuild this money? No, it's just like, take my money.
Oh, I know. And like just recently, just looking at some things like that, is like, you go on Craigslist and get a small block Chevy. Normally it still has the transmission stuck to it, and they're only asking like $400 and $500 for both.
Yep.
And now, shit, you can't get just the engine with heads for that. You used to be able to get a
nuts.
complete engine for that, but
Yeah.
it's just spiked. And a lot of it has to do with like, these things are just going away. And,
Yeah.
more, I mean, things that you thought were just normal, throwaway engines. It's like, man, now they're almost looking like gold these days.
For sure. And then just a lot of hobbies in general, like people had their stimulus checks, they were home, and like everything from like mountain bikes and dirt bikes, snowmobiles, like every recreational vehicle, like just appreciated like crazy. I mean, I had a Yamaha Raptor 4-wheeler a few years ago, and it took me like 2 months to sell it for $2,200, and it was like mint. And now I can't touch a beater for $3,500. Like they just almost doubled.
Yep.
So a friend of mine coined the term. He said like every single middle class dad hobby like doubled in price over COVID. Like, all the affordable things.
Oh man, I'm gonna be repeating that. I'm just letting y'all know right now. There's gonna be some guys at work that hear that exact phrase, because we talk about it constantly. Like, all the cool shit that we try to do on the weekends, and it's like, man, you can't afford to do half of it anymore.
I remember we tried doing things with our 5-year-old, and we're like, oh, we're just gonna go do this little fun thing. It was like 60 or $80. I was like, what did I pay for? I was like, Jesus, we didn't even eat yet. Like, it's just crazy. Like, oh no, it's too much. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I hate it. That's why we have your squirrely truck, for that exact reason, so I can have fun in that.
Yep, exactly. I guess we're gonna have to let the cat out of the bag.
Sure.
That's why I'm here.
And it was actually perfect timing, because I bought another emblem to just to have, because I found the backing for it, just to have a spare one. So I was like, oh, this is great, because we're also doing the episode today.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I was looking at it, I was like, man, because when we saw those front grill emblems, and saw them for sale, and people would take pictures of just the front, like that's all you want to see, and it's like, okay, but I need to know how this thing
back.
does it attach? Is it a magnet? It just sticks to it?
It's magic.
And come to find out, a lot of people would just lose that piece off the back, and I was like, but this one has the nut and everything for it. I was like, okay, well, it's a flat piece of metal. No wonder they just go missing.
Right?
So you can just use whatever washer you had in the garage at that point.
Yep. The listeners are so confused. Like, whoa, emblem for what? What are you talking about?
What is this big secret? So, Sam, this is your car.
No, you can say it.
So, as a few people know, we have been on the search for a 59 Buick. And we weren't ever on the search for a 59 Buick until we almost had one.
Until my heart was completely shattered. Let's rephrase that. let's rephrase that.
Yeah, we almost had one on a whim. And then we almost had two on a whim.
And then we almost had 3 and then 4.
Yeah.
It was just constant. It was it was horrible. It was horrible. That's the one thing I don't like about cars is when you find one, you're like so excited and you want to make the deal, and then something happens and you're like, fuck. I really wanted that to work. So it was
So, Mike, what's the one car that got away from you?
One that I had or that I tried to buy and couldn't get?
Which story is more heartbreaking?
Gosh, that's a good question. Oh, well, I guess this one only because the profit motive. This was just a couple years ago when I was, I'm trying to battle still being a car guy while being a father, and bills are flying out the window. But I found a 82 DeLorean, and just being a kid that grew up in Back to the Future, I just want to check that one off the bucket list, even though they suck as a car objectively. But it was a situation where the guy inherited it from his father, had no interest in it. It'd been sitting for a decade. He was told it has a bad fuel pump, but it looked very nice cosmetically for $14,000. And I'm like, they're expensive to fix if it's something more than that. They break all the time. They're terrible cars, but 14 grand seems very light. So I didn't have a truck or trailer at the time. My dad was out of town with his. I was trying to borrow a trailer from a friend. Couldn't get it together. Long story short, we got hit with a blizzard that night. It was like 6 hours away in Indiana. It was just too much, and I was like, I can't pull this off. So I didn't go. Next day, a guy came because I told him over the phone I'd take it. Someone else came up from Georgia and paid 16 grand, $2,000 over asking for it. And I think he sold it for in the 30s, a few weeks later.
Oh my God.
That one was maybe I should have just drove through the blizzard, but hey, maybe I could have.
I think at this point, after having 4 59s within our grasp, and this being the 5th one that we've finally been able to make a deal on, I think Sam would already be driving in this blizzard.
Oh, I would. I very much would.
Yeah.
we've already becoming a master plan of all right, so I'm gonna take a week off because I'm gonna want to have fun when I get home. I'm not gonna want to go to work. I don't want anybody to bug me. I just want to be in it all the time.
So, completely heartbroken and scouring the webs for another 59 Buick, Sam came across your wife posting about y'all's car. And
which was literally me using her Facebook, but yes.
That's what I told him. I was like, they said that, he was in this group because it was a 59 Buick group. And so I started following that for a couple months. I was like, every so often they pop up. I was like, but then they're gone in 5 minutes. They already take the posting down. I was like, oh my God, I need this. And
so she's already trying to figure out, okay, where's this at? How can I get to it? I'm gonna find this car, and I gotta have more information. And then by the time that you were like, okay, yeah, here's my phone number, I type in your phone number into my phone, and your name actually popped up, and I was like, that's Mike.
Backtrack. I showed him the video. I actually showed him the video you sent me, the 2 videos, and he's like, I know that podcast. And I was like, well, that's who's selling the car.
Yeah, there's my old podcast logo is still on the door, which is just a vinyl thing that should just peel right off. But yeah, so the logo is still on there. It's the one thing that's kept the podcast alive in case I ever wanted to resurrect it.
No, that was like the first thing. He was like, I know that podcast. I was like, well, that's great. Here's his number. Like, go talk to him.
Yeah, and I'm just like, at that point, I was already dialing the number and calling you, and I was like, man, this is absolutely insane that this is 4 years later.
Yeah.
After both of us have gone out of the podcasting, out of car realms, and and come back to it, and then here we are again, crossing paths again.
Yeah, and it's such a wild story. And before I even knew that, like, you were your fiance, husband,
wife.
Wife.
Yeah.
Wife. Okay, you guys are married. Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't get to have our wedding, but because of COVID. But yeah, we got married, and then we started planning for our 5-year is when we'll have the big big celebration.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, but before I knew you were the husband, it was just your wife that was like clearly like in love with this thing. I could tell right away, like, okay, I think this is meant to be here. But I was telling my wife, because my wife loves it. I mean, it's been here since we started dating. I had the car before I met her. So we have a lot of good memories in it, but she's not like a car girl. She's even like most of the time she doesn't want to take it because she likes it certain times, but she's like, it just, people stare at me too much. I just like being stared at, like it gets a lot of attention. But long story short, she could not believe that a female was the one that was interested. She's like, oh, I never saw that coming. I was like, hey, they're out there. They're contagious, these cars.
Oh, extremely. No, I'm a big fin person. So having fins in the front and back, I was like, sold. Immediately sold.
And if people aren't familiar with the 59 Buick, they should pause and go at least Google one, because it is the most like outrageous looking car that came out of that whole Americana era. And it's like people either have like this reaction where they think it's like repulsive and ridiculous, or like, I need 5 of these.
Yep.
Like there's like nothing in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you think about like all the cool things that you can do with one, and I mean you're just up all night, and like I could do this and I could do that. Even another guest that we had on the show when we were still early in our search for one, even he was like, that's one of my favorite cars, and I always thought you could do really cool things with it. I was like, man, like there's a whole culture just behind this 1 year Buick. I mean, I guess 60 is similar, but 59 is more
it's
pronounced,
similar, but
believe.
literally almost nothing's interchangeable other than the glass. It's wild. Even the frame is different. Like it's an X frame in 60, and this is a perimeter frame in 59. So like they changed the frame, they changed the cars to like an average non-car person look the same. They would probably mistake them for the same car, but if you look close, the body lines are different. So the doors don't interchange, the fenders don't interchange.
That literally sounded like me when I was explaining that to him, because he found me 60s. I was like, no, this is different. This is different. This doesn't. No, that's not what I want. I want this style. Like
it looks so angry in 59, and then it looks like it went to some anger management classes in 60. And
right, it's attitude.
That's
it's
literally
attitude,
what I said. I said it was the meanest looking face on a car, and I loved it. I love how evil it looks. Like, I just love it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been. Since I was probably 12, I've had my sights on wanting one of them. I did have 3 at one point, and this is the only one that stuck around. I had a 2-door hardtop, which I really wanted, but it was really rough. And then I had another flat top. It's a 4-door flat top. It's got the roof of the convertible, so it looks like a factory chop top. And then it's a hard top, so there's no pillar in between the 2 doors. So it's a really sleek looking car. Now, the other one I had came from New Mexico, bought it sight unseen. And I got it here, and it was that like mint green, but it was all just sun beaten from sitting in the desert since the 50s. Like it had the coolest patina I've ever seen, and not a speck of rust. It was a desert rat.
Yeah.
But the interior was like dissolved, like all the vinyl and everything was gone. I mean, it needed a lot of work. The motor seized up probably in the 70s, and it just sat in a desert. But I bought it here sight unseen. Then I was going to build that car, and I told Matt this on the phone. The way I got the car that you're buying was 2 weeks after I got that car delivered. Like I'm on top of the world, like all these plans. I'm going to LS swap it. I want to do burnouts. Like I was all excited. I'm up at a work party up in St. Paul, and my buddy texts me. He goes, "Hey, you're in Minnesota right now, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Check out this 59." And the car you're buying was for sale. And I was like, "Oh man, this one already runs. Like this is like way closer. Like this is a way better car." So I started. I was like, "Well, let me see how far it is from my hotel." It's 9 minutes from my hotel. I'm like, "Well, now I gotta look at it." And I go there and I'm just like, "Oh man, like this thing is such a better piece to start with. Way less money needed to get this thing on the road." And I told the guy, I'm like, "Well, I'll be back to Minnesota next week with a trailer because I can't get this thing home right now." So I doubled back the next week, picked it up and bought it. So I had those two in my garage. Then I had the 59 two-door, which was pretty rough. And that was another crazy story how I got that one. My buddy, who's also a 59 junkie, I think he has 5 or 6 of them in a barn right now. So we're,
Oh my God.
yeah, and we're childhood friends too, but we came across this obsession separately. And when we were older, it was really weird. This 59 world is very odd, but he sent me the link to it, and it was also in northern Minnesota, like way up there, and it was like $2,000, and I was like, it was a 2-door, so I'm like, I gotta buy this thing. But it was really rough. I mean, a lot of rust, motor was locked up. It was black though. I mean, it was a really mean looking car, 2-door hardtop. And I was like, well, I gotta drive all the way to Minnesota to get it for $2,000. Like I'm gonna have that much money, just because it was way up there. I was like, well, I know a shipper that is out of Iowa. Let me give him a call and see, just for shits and grins, how much it would cost to get shipped here. So I call him and he goes, well, where's the car at? And I give him the name of the town in Minnesota. He goes, have you paid for this thing yet? I was like, no. He goes, well, how much is it? I was like, $2,000. He goes, well, here's the thing, Mike. I'm an hour from that town right now, and I got an empty spot, and I got $2,000 cash on me. You want me to pick it up for you? And I'm like, what? Like, I met this guy one time. He delivered one car for me like 2 years ago, and now he's financing a car for me and delivering it to me. And he charged me like $200 for delivery because I was coming through my town anyways, and he had an empty spot. So Friday night at 5 o'clock, my buddy calls me about this. By noon the next day, the thing's in my driveway, like, completely paid for and delivered. And then I sold that car to my buddy, and then he sold it back to me, and then I sold it back to him, and then it sold it to someone else in Kentucky. Over the course of like 7 years, we never did anything with it. But it was like we wanted to keep it in the family. We kept like trading it back and forth, but it was another thing. It just had to go. It was just sitting around, and I was tired of moving it. And there's too many projects. Yeah, so 59s are addictive. That's the moral of the story.
It's a sickness for sure. Yeah, because you're right. I mean, I never had the want to get a 59 Buick. It just never really hit my brain ever until a friend of mine had one, and I was just like, that's a really cool car. I really dig it. And he had it. I think it was on airbags, and it was just like this really cool car. And I always like loved the fact that it was so angry in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started searching for cars, it just became this thing of like, well, I like it, but I don't love it. And everything we were coming across was I like, but I don't love it. Mm-hmm. And until she started seeing more Buicks come in, and she was like, I love that.
I started comparing all the years, and I was like, let me look at this. I was like, I don't like that. I was like, this, done, sold. Where do I find one? Like, I wouldn't stop. I was obsessing over it. I would stay up, and I would like wake you up at like 3 a.m. I'm like, look at this one. Look at this one. This one's nice, but it needs a lot of work, so we can't do that because I don't want a project. I want it to run so I can just start.
They're getting harder and harder to find because there's a huge cult following in Sweden and all over Europe for these things.
Yes.
Like the other flat top I mentioned, that green one that came from New Mexico, I sold that to a guy in Belgium.
I was about to say that. I saw that in that Buick group that there's like 4 or 5 in Germany, and then there's one in like France. Mm-hmm. Like they're popping up over there, and a lot of people from the U.S. are commenting on it, being like, "Would y'all?" They're like, "No, we won't sell them." But I've seen like a couple people that like they get shipped over there, and then they never come back, and people are scared that they're gonna all go over there, and there's not gonna be any here.
There is an obsession with America 1950s culture, like Elvis, Coca-Cola, tail fins, like in Sweden. Like they have these massive car shows of like thousands of American cars. It's nuts. They love our stuff sometimes more than we do, it seems like. But that was kind of a sad one because I sent that car to Belgium. Then like 2 weeks later, it went through a broker, and the broker contacted me asking me if I had any parts for it. Like they needed trim parts. And I'm like, no, why? They're like, oh, well, they didn't strap it down correctly in transit, and it ran into the front of it moved on the water and hit its storage container, and it like smashed the front end. And I was like, oh no, like that car was so perfect.
That is a horror story.
We
right
did the
there.
same sound right now because I just felt the heartbreak in that. I was like, oh, that's so hard.
Yeah,
that is
sending
one of
pictures,
the main things that was determining our factor in this hunt was all of the chrome trim and like the different spots and especially the chrome trim coming across the front of that hood. Like that is one of the things that that we also noticed, like going from 59 to 60. 60 got rid of a lot of the chrome. Yeah. And it just doesn't look the same. It doesn't have that same
it wasn't as sharp as I wanted it to be.
She pointed that out to me immediately. She's like, it's got to have this chrome trim on that front hood.
I was like, in the 60 it doesn't have it. I was like, it looks too soft now. I don't like it. Like I would not budge. We had many friends that were like, we have a 60. I was like, no, that's not what I want. I want this.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard with these cars because virtually nothing is reproduced, because although you and I are crazy about these things, not enough of the market is, so that not a lot of the parts get remade. And the only parts that interchange with Cadillac and Chevy, who have endless parts because those cars are super popular, the Impalas and the 59 Cadillacs with those iconic tail fins, the only parts that interchange are the carpet and the glass.
Yes.
The windshield. So if you crack your windows, that's good. You can replace that, but your trim, your fenders, anything like that, no, you're going to the pages and the forums and you're waiting patiently and paying a lot of money.
And a lot of those pages are like freaking piranhas as soon as somebody posts something up.
Yeah.
No, so we're all sickos. Like everyone has to have multiple, so they're all like, everyone's hoarding their own 59 Buick stash and they need parts and no one wants to sell anything.
I remember there was one guy in that group. He had an emblem, and he was like, "Oh, I have an extra." I was like, "Oh, okay. Do you want to sell it?" He's like, "No, I just want to keep it to myself." I was like, "Why would you post it saying that like I may give it away, but it's like, nah, I want to keep it." I was like, "Now you just frustrated me because you said you wanted to give it away. Now I got to start back to square one." But I think that was like the craziest thing in this hunt was like having to find one that had like all of the pieces, because people were like, "Oh, I'll find it later." I'm like, "You will not. This is hard." Like I looked just in general just to see like what we could find, and I was like, "Oh God, this is a lot harder." Like I knew it was hard, but I didn't know it was that hard to find every little piece. So
and and this one was wild. So when I put the feelers out on the page, I was like, I know this my car is pretty custom. I mean, it could go back to stock if you wanted to, but I figured the person buying this, the reason why I did what I did to it was because it's a 4-door. So if I wanted to paint it and restore it, like I'm gonna put more money into it than it's worth to get it perfect back to stock. So I was like, it's got awesome patina. I just ran a buffer over it, got the original like faded paint gleaming, so it's kind of a really wild look. It's two-tone blue and white. Then my buddy Ryan Schmidt down in Streeter, Illinois, he does all kinds of custom work. His dad's a super renowned hot rod builder, and he had his own shop. He's about my age, and I was really busy with work, and I was like, "Hey, can you just throw this thing on some airbags? And here's a sound system, and like I just want to be driving this thing like next month. Like I don't have time for a project." So he did it for a very reasonable rate, and so it's got air ride. You got a nice sound system with a touch screen with XM radio and nice speakers and Bluetooth and all that fun stuff. Threw some flamethrowers on the exhaust just for the wedding. Haven't really used those since, but and even for the pictures for the wedding, it kind of sucked because our photographer left before dark, and I was like, "No, I need you to stay till dark for this." And so we have some really grainy cell phone pictures of the flamethrowers going off, but hey, we did it. It was the goal.
The other day, I told Sam that we need to recreate y'all's wedding picture.
So we're going to do that. Yeah, so we're going to do that for our wedding. We're going to recreate that exact picture and have them both side by side. Because I was like, that's it. That's what it has to be.
I thought that would be a fun idea.
And you mentioned pinstriping. So my friend Ryan at the time, his girlfriend was an artist and a pinstriper. So she did the pinstriping on the trunk lid, on the hood, and then she put Summertime Blues on the trunk lid after the 59 Eddie Cochran song Summertime Blues.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, it's blue, it's fun, it's the era, it's correct. And then I got the license plates that match. It says no key or Summertime Blues when you're behind it. Then on the dashboard, she put no dice, son, you got to work late. Another quote from the song.
Yep.
So it was kind of personalized. So I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to want this thing or be like, I got to undo everything this guy did. Like, I didn't know how people would receive, but boom, I think in 20 minutes you had it bought.
Yeah, I was so dead. Like, I would stalk that page religiously. Like, I was just like, no, I'm gonna find one. I was like, because the minute anybody posts something, I was like, that's it. There's like 20 other people right after me, or there's 20 people before me that are already messaging. I was like, no, this is mine. Like,
yeah, and it was. I mean, I never would have really considered selling it. We're gonna keep it. My kids are heartbroken, the older two, but they'll get over it. But my dad did it to me all the time. Like, we did a GSX or a GTO, and I'm like, oh, we gotta keep this one, and boom, it's gone. And I'm numb to it. They come and go. But I was just doing the math, and I'm like, we got a payment on the truck, we got a payment on the van. This thing's sitting here. I'm trying to keep mice off of it. I'm keeping the tires up. Like, I start it, I drive it once in a while to get gas. The kids like it, but it gets hot because there's no air conditioning. I don't have time to throw the air conditioning kit in it that I want to do, and all this stuff. And I'm like, we've had 5 years with it. Like, maybe we've run our course. Like, maybe it's time to send it to someone who wants it a little better. I could pay off the truck, pay off the van, buy a plow for my truck. We moved. We have a big driveway now. I'm like, the adult decision. Like, I had a car guy devil on one shoulder and a personal finance angel on the other, like, battling me all day. I'm like, I know. I want to sell it. Like, don't want to pull out of any other investments right now. I was like, this is the only thing that's like, it's not necessary. I don't need it, even though I really like it and I don't want to sell it. So I just had to convince myself that it's time to grow up and get rid of all the toys. And I am literally stuck with, my wife has a minivan and I have a Prius. So I've come a long way. I've fallen pretty hard.
Oh my God. Just tugs at the
I got a full-size Chevy
heartstrings.
truck though, so that kind of redeems me somewhat. But
That's my next thing is I need to get another
I used to
truck.
excuse the Prius because people would. Yeah, I used to excuse having a Prius because, like, guys, you can't give me any crap because I literally have a 59 Buick that lights gasoline on fire out of the exhaust just for fun. So, like, I get to, like, that offsets the Prius. But now I can no longer say that.
I mean, we've got a friend with a smart car that is just going around in circles. He does everything with his smart car. He pulls a boat with it.
it is hilarious when he drives that little smart car. He pushes that thing to the limits. I don't know how he does, but he does.
Yeah.
But,
shout out to Steve Lee.
Mm-hmm. But like you were saying, like with your kids being like hurt and stuff, that's how our daughter Penny was, because she's 5. She's been around cars since she was a little kid. She loves cars. She tells all her little kindergarten friends that she's like, I'm in a car club. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's your club. It's not mine, I guess. But, when we sold my Thunderbird, she was just so heartbroken about it. She was like, you're getting rid of it. Like, it's supposed to be mine. I was like, we're going to get another one. I promise you it's going to be so much cooler. You're going to love it. And so we started showing her pictures and videos of the Buick, and she's like, that's going to be mine. I was like, damn, I don't even get to enjoy it. You're already calling dibs.
Yeah. No, my stepdaughter's 8, and she was 3 when I came into the picture, so she doesn't really remember life without it. She's been riding in it since she was, really little, since her earliest memories. So when I told her, I was like, well, I got some news. I think we're going to be selling it. You would think I just told her we were getting her dog put to sleep. Like, she just started crying hysterically. And my wife was like, relax, sweetie. It's just a car. And she's like on the ground with a temper tantrum, just crying, saying, no. Like, she said, she'll buy it from me. I mean, it was just like, stop. You're breaking my heart. Like, I was like, it makes sense. You understand when you're older. Like, you got to make, I was like, sometimes I tell you, like, you have too many toys, you don't need any more. Well, sometimes grown-ups do that too. And right now, Daddy's doing that. So
She just goes to her room, brings all her toys out, take them all back.
I will trade.
I don't want any of it.
She told me she would sell all her toys, so if we needed money, she could pay everything. Oh my gosh, breaking my heart. But yeah, they call it flatty because it's a flat top body style, so they call it old flatty, as the kids refer it to as. Like, oh, I want to go to old flatty. Where's old flatty? So, we have flat top Fridays where we just take it out for a cruise. Call it flat top Friday. So it's a it's like
that's awesome. That's awesome. Have we figured out how far from us to Illinois is?
No, I
How
haven't.
many hours? We're gonna have to figure out how to get you down to San Antonio at some point.
Hell yeah, San Antonio. I can look it up right now. I'm almost to Wisconsin, so I'm way up here. 18 hours.
Yeah.
18 hours. All right. 18 hours. You're gonna have to come down and eat some Mexican food with us and hang out at some point with the wife and 4 kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it stops there. A little stressed out right now. But yeah, no, it was crazy. I went from no kids to 4 in 3 years. So be careful.
That's a big jump.
Yeah.
That is a big jump.
Met a girl. She had a child, so I had a stepdaughter. Things went pretty quick. My son was born 364 days after we met. Just leave it at that. And then we tried for a third after we got married and got twins.
And you got double.
Like, boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Double. That is what he is terrified of. He's like, that'll be my luck. I'm like, it probably would.
Because we're in that mode where it's like, I think we can do one.
But then it's like, I like cars. So I don't know which one. I don't know if it outweighs. I was like, well, we have one. I was like, so I'm kind of okay with that. And she doesn't want any like siblings. She religiously says that no. And I'm like, oh, got it. So I don't know. We're kind of in that boat right now. We're like, do we don't? But as of right now, I'm like, no. Penny wants to be in a car. She wants to be in a hot rod car and she wants to drive around and be cool. So that's expensive in itself.
It requires a lot of sacrifice for sure. So I totally respect people who want to take it at a slower pace. We really just kind of went hard out of the gate here. We figure by the time we're in our 40s, our kids will all be at a more independent age and we can kind of relax then. So that's the goal. But yeah, it's
and by that time a Honda Civic is considered classic.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. I was looking at there's like a 07 Roush Mustang the other day at a car show we were at, and I was like, what's crazy is like within the decade this thing will qualify for antique plates.
Yes.
It's like this thing still looks brand new to me. It's like a high-end Roush Mustang, but yeah, the years are flying by.
They are. They absolutely are. So for our listeners out there that have been listening to us ramble on about all of this, we would like you to write in and let us know if you prefer cars and dogs over having more kids, and we'll take that into consideration.
Some polling data.
No. I already know if we ever had a kid, he'd be like you. He'd be hell on wheels. He'll be hell on wheels.
You'd be lucky if he was like me.
No. He'd be hell on wheels. He'd be crashing into everything.
Well, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, I just realized that I think we might be making podcasting history here because we never formally signed a bill of sale, and you guys just sent me a down payment in good faith, which is cool. I'm glad we have that relationship. But like, if I was to like try to screw you over on this deal, like this podcast would hold up in court as like we contracted this deal. This is our bill of sale.
Oh man, I didn't even think of that either.
Has this ever happened before? Has anyone ever sold a car on a podcast before?
Right?
That's a good question. If you're listening to this podcast,
but have you ever had it on video and audio? Because we have
video and audio.
That's
contractual
crazy.
Agreement.
That's so crazy. I didn't even think about that.
Pretty cool.
Oh man, now I'm gonna have to go out and tell everybody how much we paid for this car. No, I'm not.
No, we are not those people. Mm-mm.
Not doing that.
I'm that person who'll be like, hey, you know how much I paid for it, but I don't need everybody else to know how much I paid for it.
No, definitely not.
That's not.
All right, Mike. Well, dude, we appreciate you being on with us and hanging out. And I know it's getting late, and absolutely love the fact that we could do this and talk some cars. And I know you've been itching to talk cars lately. So, is there any other folks out there that you'd like to give some shout outs to? Any of your old listeners maybe, or anything along those lines?
It's funny you mentioned that. So this is a quick little crazy story. So my new podcast has nothing to do with cars. I mean, there's no relation. The name's not the same. There's like, it's 4 years apart when I started them. So I originally started my new podcast, Pulse to the Wall, and I advertised on a podcast called Part of the Problem with Dave Smith, who's the host. He has a really large following. He's been on Rogan several times. He might be running for president in 24. So he's really big podcast. I bought some ad space on there, and it said like our name of our show, and it said with hosts Mike and Nick Paul. So like, long story short, we get like engaging with people on Twitter with our new podcast. And there's this one guy who just messages saying like, I love the show. I really enjoyed the old show too. And I think he meant the Mike Paul cast, the first 10 episodes before we were Paul's to the Wall. Like I liked it before it was you and not just you and your brother. And then he's like, no, the car one. And I'm like, wait, you listen to the Motor Madhouse? He goes, yeah, I listen to every episode. I'm like, how did you find us? Like, we're not even in the same genre anymore. And we changed the name of the show. He's like, oh, I happen to listen to Part of the Problem as well. And I heard your ad and I recognized your name. And I'm like, whoa. So his name's Sean Anderson. He's like our biggest loyal listener. So it's kind of cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is absolutely awesome. I know we had several people that jumped on with us when we started the Custom Couple that have always been like, well, we're really glad that you're doing another podcast, and they've been following everything we're doing now. So it's just really cool, like when you link up with folks like that, and then they support all of your new genre of things that's going on. Like you almost grow with people sometimes. So it's pretty rad. But we will let you get to your normal life, and we'll let our listeners get to their normal lives. And
one thing before we go. I also just want to say thank you, because you have given me my dream car now. So for everybody listening out there, a 59 Buick is coming home, and it will be mine.
I could not be more thrilled where it's going. This story it's gonna be an awesome place. Like, I'm glad I know where it's at, and got a cool relationship with you guys now, and I'm sure I can get picture updates and all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's mine.
Yeah, I made the mistake of telling my daughter. I'm like, well, I was like, yeah, and they got a little girl too. She's gonna love it. That was the wrong thing to say. I didn't even think about that sentence before she started screaming. Like, now it's like, now you're taking like her like ex-boyfriend or something, so I bit my tongue. I was like, oh wait, that didn't land very well.
Oh man, I don't even know how to fix that burn. There's not aloe vera in the world to fix that burn.
I thought of one way, but I'm going to keep that a secret. I don't want either of you to know that, but I kind of have something that I'll be bringing with me when we go pick up this car.
Okay. All right, we'll get all that figured out for you. We'll make the burn as less burn as possible.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
You know what? It's your car. You do the sign off.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody listening, and in all things custom, keep it cool.